Dave Roberts doesn't make shocking announcements. That is not who he is. That is not how he operates. In years of managing one of the most scrutinized franchises in professional baseball, Roberts has built his reputation on calm, unmeasured, on the specific kind of steadiness that a clubhouse leans on when everything around it is moving too fast. So when Roberts walked into that press conference room today and said what he said, the way he said it, with the directness of someone who had already decided that softening it would only make it worse, the room didn't just go quiet. It stopped. Because Dave Roberts does not make shocking announcements. Until today. Before we get to what Roberts said, we need to understand the environment he said it in. Because context is everything. And the context surrounding the Dodgers right now is not simple. 3 players are gone. Not sent down. Not placed on the injured list with a vague timeline and a hopeful update attached. Gone. Traded. A 3-for-1 deal that moved 3 names off the 2026 roster in a single transaction, the kind of move that restructures not just a depth chart but the entire internal culture of a locker room that had built its rhythms around those 3 presences. A left-handed ace has been confirmed to join this team. Tommy Edman's return has become the most divisive topic inside the organization, not because of anything Edman did, but because of what one player said about him publicly that has now made its way into every conversation happening around this team. And Shohei Ohtani, whose name belongs in every chapter of every Dodgers story this season whether anyone planned it that way or not, is at the center of something that nobody in that building is ready to talk about fully yet. This is not a quiet week for Los Angeles. This is not a week that gets filed away easily. Let's start with the trade. Because the trade is where everything else begins. 3 players. 1 incoming. A 3-for-1 structure that, on paper, looks like addition through subtraction. The Dodgers gave up depth to gain something specific. Something they identified as a gap. Something that the front office decided was worth the cost of 3 roster pieces that, individually, were valuable, but together, apparently, were the right price for what was coming back. The left-handed ace is confirmed. That confirmation alone would have been enough news for an entire week in most baseball cities. A proven left-handed starter arriving in Los Angeles, slotting into a rotation that already carries more star power than most teams see in a generation. The kind of pitcher whose presence changes how opposing managers construct their lineups 3 days in advance. The kind of addition that makes a pitching staff not just deeper but genuinely more dangerous from a strategic standpoint. The Dodgers identified the need. They addressed it. And they were willing to move 3 players to do it. That is a statement of intent. But the 3 players who left, their departure is not just a transaction number. They were people in that locker room. They had relationships in that building. And when 3 people leave at the same time, the ones who remain feel the shape of that absence in ways that don't show up in any analytics model. Roberts knew that. Which is why what he said in the press conference wasn't just about the trade. It was about everything the trade carried with it. He walked in without the usual pre-conference energy that surrounds a positive announcement. No slight looseness in the shoulders. No expression that signals good news is coming. Roberts walked in the way he walks in when he needs the room to understand immediately that what follows requires their full attention. He sat down. Adjusted the microphone once. Looked out at the reporters gathered in front of him. And then he said it. The announcement that nobody in that room, nobody covering this team, nobody inside this organization, had seen coming in the form that it came. The details of what Roberts announced are still reverberating through the baseball world as of this moment. What is clear is this: it was not a standard roster update. It was not the kind of announcement that gets processed and filed within the hour. It was the kind of statement that changes the way people inside and outside the organization understand where this team is right now and where Roberts believes it is going. The air in that room shifted the moment the words were out. One reporter described it afterward as the feeling of watching someone reset the table completely. Not flip it. Not walk away from it. Reset it. With intention. With clarity. With the specific authority of a manager who has decided that the moment for careful, diplomatic language has passed. Roberts was not careful today. He was clear. And then came the question about Tommy Edman. Because Edman's return, which should have been a straightforward, celebratory storyline, has become something considerably more complicated. Not because of anything in Edman's medical report. Not because of a setback or a new concern about his readiness. But because of 4 words spoken publicly by a teammate that have now rewritten the entire narrative surrounding his comeback. Ha-Seong Kim said he doesn't deserve it. Let that sit for a moment. Not a vague criticism. Not a carefully worded concern framed in diplomatic language. A direct statement. Public. Pointed. Delivered with the kind of certainty that tells you it wasn't said in the heat of a moment. It was said by someone who meant it, who chose the words deliberately, who understood exactly what saying them out loud would mean. He doesn't deserve it. The reaction inside the Dodgers organization was immediate. Not just among players, though the players felt it, and felt it sharply. Among coaches. Among staff. Among the people who have watched Edman work through his recovery with the grinding, unglamorous discipline that serious rehabilitation demands. The people who have been in that facility early in the morning when nobody is watching, who have seen what it actually costs a player to come back from something like this. Those people heard Kim's words and went very still. Kim and Edman share something that most teammates do not. A position. A role. A specific piece of defensive real estate on the field that only one of them can occupy at a time. And in professional baseball, that kind of overlap creates a pressure that is rarely spoken about openly but is always present underneath the surface of every interaction. When Edman went down, Kim stepped into the space. He performed. He made the role his own in the way that competitive players do when opportunity arrives unexpectedly. He gave the Dodgers reasons to feel good about the situation. And now Edman is coming back. And the space that Kim occupied is becoming contested again. That is the true source of what was said. Not cruelty. Not a personal attack disguised as a competitive opinion. Something more complicated than either of those things. The words of a player who worked hard to fill a role, who did it well, and who is now watching the original occupant of that role walk back through the door, and who, instead of keeping that feeling inside the room where these things are normally processed, let it out in the worst possible way. Publicly. By name. In a way that cannot be walked back. Roberts was asked about Kim's comments directly. He didn't look away. He didn't redirect to a safer topic. He answered. His voice was measured. But underneath the measure was something firm enough that everyone in the room understood this was not a diplomatic non-answer wrapped in professional language. Tommy Edman has earned everything he has in this organization, Roberts said. Every single thing. The way he came back, the work he put in, what he means to this team on and off the field, that is not a conversation I'm going to have from a place of uncertainty. He paused. I'll say this once and I won't revisit it. There is nobody in this building who gets to define what another player deserves. That is not how we operate here. That is not who we are. The room stayed quiet. A reporter pushed slightly. Asked whether Kim's comments would affect his role going forward. Roberts looked at the table for a moment. Then back up. We'll handle what needs to be handled internally. What I can tell you is that this team moves forward together. That's the only direction available to us. He closed it there. But the weight of what he didn't say was as loud as everything he did. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, the trade, the announcement, the Kim situation, the confirmed arrival of the left-handed ace, Ohtani has been doing something that the people around him have started to notice with a frequency that is becoming impossible to ignore. He has been watching. Not passively. Not with the detached observation of someone who is simply present in a space while events unfold around him. Actively watching. paying attention to the temperature of the room in a way that the people nearby describe as almost managerial in its quality. As if he is taking inventory. As if he is building a picture in his mind of exactly where this team is emotionally and exactly what it needs from him that goes beyond what he provides between the lines. Those who have been around him this week say his demeanor shifted after the Kim comments became public. Not visibly. Not dramatically. Ohtani does not do dramatic. But in the small ways that people who know him recognize, the specific stillness he carries into a room, the way he listens to conversations happening near him without appearing to listen, the moment he chooses to speak and the moment he chooses not to, something changed. He has not commented publicly on what Kim said. He has not needed to. Because what Ohtani does next, on the field, in the clubhouse, in the quiet moments that the cameras never catch, will say everything that needs to be said. Louder than any press conference. Louder than any transaction wire. Ohtani does not need words to make a point. The people in that building already know that. The left-handed ace will be introduced formally in the coming days. The 3 players who were traded are already beginning the process of relocating, of adjusting, of finding their footing in new organizations that will ask different things of them than the Dodgers did. Edman will return to a clubhouse that is carrying attention it wasn't carrying last week. Kim will face the internal consequences of words that cannot be unsaid. Roberts will manage all of it, the roster change, the personality friction, the emotional temperature of a team that has absorbed more in 1 week than most absorb in a month. And the Dodgers will play baseball. Because the schedule does not pause for shocking announcements. It does not pause for trades or tensions or the complicated aftermath of words spoken publicly that should have stayed private. It moves forward at exactly the same pace it always has. Roberts knows that. Which is why the announcement he made today, whatever comes next, however the room processes it, was made with the clarity of someone who has already decided that clarity, right now, is the only thing this team can afford. He was right. He usually is.